of England, which I represent, that's Norfolk, Suffolk, Cambridgeshire, Essex, Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire. And people may have a picture of sort of very rural Norfolk, Fenland and say, yes, that's true rural area. But actually, we have very rural isolated communities in all of those counties. And the last time I checked the numbers, over 20% of the households in the east of England are not on mains gas. So lots of little village communities and not having access to mains gas. So that immediately means that an option for reducing your energy bills, i.e. putting in a more efficient boiler, is not open for most of the households in the east of England. Now, if you're not on mains gas, that also means a lot of those households have relied on domestic heating oil for their main heating. So they're a combination of electricity plus domestic heating oil. So it's a very different picture to what you would have in a much more urban area. We obviously do have cities and we obviously do have market towns, and they would tend to have the mains gas, but the village populations would not, and that, as I say, would be over 20% of the people in the area. Yes, I do, because it means you've got fewer options to you, and then you also combine that with what we have in a lot of the UK, which is an older housing stock. So some of your first easy gains, like putting cavity wall insulation, loft insulation, are more complicated in older properties. So in parts of the east of England, in those rural communities, I have seen people take more adventurous solutions. So people have taken on energy efficient measures where they can. And we tend to be very early adopters actually of green measures in the east of England. We're great at recycling and things like that. So energy efficiency where they can do that. There are a lot more homes with solar panels, and I noticed those as well on social housing a lot more. So people, because you can't take a more efficient gas boiler, they've looked at sort of solar panels. There's been a lot more people putting in wood burners where the property is suitable for that, but that has meant in the region now wood prices are getting quite significant, and that is also very expensive, so it's not necessarily an easy gain. So what I'm saying is, where you don't have gas and you're on domestic heating oil, your number of tools that you can use are limited, and that also means that you open yourself up to fuel poverty, because a lot of those other potential tools can be quite expensive as a capital investment. So if you can come up with a capital for solar panel, or if you're entitled to a grant, that's one thing, but then people would struggle if they haven't got that access to capital. So that also then contributes to fuel poverty too. I do, and especially because on public buildings, I want to see, public buildings leading by example. We all have, in these village communities, there's village halls, there's village schools, and they all have the ability to be an exemplar of how do you have an energy efficient building in a rural community. But a lot of those buildings are leaky buildings, a lot of them have old heating systems, etc. So how do you then help that parish council, which is struggling with its own funds, to improve the quality of their public building? And one of the problems is that these, of course, are lots of little deals. So anytime they're trying to do an investment, you have lots of start-up costs. So getting the assessor along, getting the builder along. And that's very difficult to then finance and get funding, efficient funding, for lots of little deals. So I'm very keen to see more clustering. And I've spoken, for example, to Cambridge County Council. They'd love to bring clusters together of public buildings, able to draw down on one financing line, one stream of financing, to be able to do a number of improvements and really make a difference in each of our communities. Because then people can see what works in the village hall and try that out in their own house.